So we also, as children of God, show this virtue. We also shall be in midst of any trouble shall stand for the laws of God. Then the next personality is David. We all know that David was the king of Israel. Then before that an incident was occurred. That incident was, I'm going to tell. David refused the Saul's garments to battle against Goliath, and he went bravely with a staff and 5 stones. But the strongest arms he had with him was the name of the Lord. Let us read that portion. That is 1 Samuel 17:45. Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I came to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied." In this world, God's children should depend on the divine power to fight against Satan and his army. The only arms we have is the armor of God. Paul mentioned about this, and let me read it. Ephesians 6:11-18. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we are not contending against the flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore take the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with equipment of the gospel of peace. Besides all this, taking the shield of faith, with which you can quench all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And 18 also, pray at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints. So let us put our armor to fight in this battle against the devil and his company. Like Paul saying to the Corinthians, we can also say like that. What? We are traveling in this human body, but we are not fighting this war in a world-like way. Instead, fighting with the divine power of God, God's virtue, to demolish the fortresses. That is 2 Corinthians 10:3 and 4. For though we live in the world, we are not carrying in a worldly war. For the weapons of our warfare are not worldly, but our divine power to destroy strongholds. Then the third personality is a lady, that is Esther. Esther was the wife of Ahasuerus, who was the king of 127 provinces. That is Esther, that we can read from Esther chapter 1 verse 1. In the days of Ahasuerus, who reigned from the India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. Esther showed a great braveness to redeem her people, Judah, from the dreadness of Haman with prayer and fasting. And this incident we can read from Esther chapter 3 verse 12 and 13. Then the king's secretaries were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and an edict according to all that Haman commanded was returned to the king's satraps and to the governors over all the provinces, and to the princes of all peoples, to every province in its own script and every people in its own language. It was written in the name of the king Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's ring. Letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, to slay, and to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. But we can read from Esther chapter 4 verse 6 to 11, 14 and 16. Then chapter 5 verse 12. Chapter 4 verse 6 to 11. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the exact sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa in their destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her, and charge her to go to the king to make supplication to him and entreat him for her people. And Hathach went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a message for Mordecai, saying, all the king's servants and people's people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law. All alike are to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden serpent that he may live. And I have not been called to come into the king these 30 days. To know who is this Mordecai, Esther's background, I want to read chapter 2 verse 5, 6 and 7. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the capital, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjaminite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives carried away with Jeconiah, the king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The maiden was beautiful and lovely, and when her father and her mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his own daughter. So the fourth one is